Hi, this is Alex from devstories.eu. Azure Pipelines, episode 1 of 10. You click around a web interface, drag a few boxes, and your build works perfectly. Then someone changes a setting, the build breaks, and you have absolutely no history of who did what or why. That is the trap of visual editors, and it is exactly why the shift from classic UI to YAML pipelines is the foundation of modern CI/CD. Azure Pipelines gives you two distinct ways to automate your software delivery. The older method is the classic interface. It relies on a graphical web portal where you configure tasks using forms and drop-down menus. It feels accessible when you are starting out, but as your system grows, the classic approach becomes a major liability. The configuration lives in the Azure DevOps database, entirely disconnected from your actual source code. YAML pipelines replace this with the concept of pipeline as code. Instead of configuring settings in a web portal, you define your entire build and release process in a plain text file. You commit this YAML file directly into your repository, keeping it right next to the application code it is meant to build. Some developers hesitate to switch, worrying that a text-based configuration might restrict features compared to the visual editor. That is not the case. YAML pipelines offer full feature parity for continuous integration and continuous delivery. Microsoft considers the classic UI legacy and focuses new development on YAML. It is the enterprise standard for repeatability and auditing. Think about a team migrating a complex drag-and-drop build definition into a repository file. In the old system, testing a new build step meant editing the shared pipeline configuration, potentially breaking the build for the rest of the team. With YAML, the pipeline is version-controlled just like your application. If you create a feature branch to upgrade a core dependency, you can modify the YAML file in that exact same branch. The updated build logic applies only to your isolated branch. The rest of the team continues using the main branch pipeline without interruption. Here is the key insight. Because your pipeline is now just a text file in Git, it falls under your standard code review process. When you move away from the UI, no one can quietly alter a deployment target or skip a testing step. Every change to the pipeline requires a commit. It requires a pull request. It requires an approval from a colleague. You gain a permanent, undeniable audit trail of every modification. Furthermore, your pipeline state is forever locked to your application state. If you need to roll back to a release from 6 months ago, the YAML file from that exact point in time is preserved in your Git history. You are guaranteed to have the correct build instructions for that specific older version of the code. The transition to YAML is about treating your delivery mechanism with the exact same engineering rigor as the software it delivers. If you find these episodes helpful and want to support the show, you can search for DevStories EU on Patreon. That's all for this one. Thanks for listening and keep building.